How's it going? So, this is a retrospective video. It's probably not what you were expecting to hear from me. And it is TCG Con 1 year later. So, if you're unfamiliar, I am Paul. I was the National Sales Manager for TCG Con once upon a time. Also, you probably haven't heard very much from me involving all this on social media, basically at all. Mainly because I kept to myself about a lot of it, and I wanted to kind of tell the story of how I got involved with TCG Con and what transpired from my perspective. I will say to everybody, this is my perspective, and this is not in any way a targeted thing towards anybody. I'll just be very clear with that at the beginning. The only ones who I will specifically mention by name in this particular video are the former owners or owners. I don't know the logistical side of, or like the legal side of it anymore, are Des and Dustin. And the former owner, David. So, long story short, I quit my job in 2021. I quit my career. I couldn't get through COVID, and we're not gonna like get into all the details of that. But effectively, it was me having a new lease on life. I'm going to go out. I'm going to make my own game. I'm going to follow my dreams. I'm going to do the things that I wanted to do when I was a kid. I have the financial means. I have the drive. I have the gusto, and I have the means and capability to do it. And I made my game, Arsenal TCG. Now this is it in its latest form, and it has not had any updates for quite a while. And a lot of people in the community that I had built are aware of this. And effectively, I wanted to make a video telling my side of why I was involved with TCG Con from the very beginning, and what happened. Because I've had people say you should do a tell-all. I've had people say, "Oh, it'd be so good for you to get this off your chest. Oh, maybe you could do a GoFundMe and make all this money." No, it's not about money. At least not entirely about money. But we'll get to that with the story. But overall, this is my 1 year retrospective TCG Con. So, a little bit of foundational work. I'm going to try to keep this one shorter. I already did this once and it took way too long, so I don't know how to edit, so we get to film the whole thing again. Um, so, back in 2021, first con that showed up on my radar uh, was right after COVID, because remember, COVID shut down all the cons. It was great. Um, and the first con that shows up in effectively Florida is TCG Con. It's this brand new con. It's run by a couple of cool guys, and they're going to go to the fairgrounds. They're gonna rent out tables at very reasonable prices. At the time, I believe for my inline booth, it was $250. 250 bucks for an inline booth, 2 day show. Um, Nice and simple. You get a couple days, a Saturday and a Sunday, to show off your stuff and see what people buy, see what they don't buy. And I said, you know what, it's time. And I made my game. I made booster packs. I made all of it, and I had the rule sheets and rule books and all that prepared. I had the art done by my sister-in-law. I was very excited because had the gusto. I had the drive to make this a real thing. And I get contacted by Dustin about 2 weeks before the show, and he asks if I want to move my booth. And I told him, I think the line that got him to want to eventually work with me, which was I wanted to be across from the biggest dog in the room, which at the time was Goat Gaming, or Goat Cards. They were still at the show up until I think 2023, and no, I said I want to be across from the biggest dog in the room because they're going to draw the biggest crowd, and I'm going to pull that crowd away because I'm going to be, I'm a new game. I'm the only one, and there was like a lot of validation points for me at that time. One, I had someone reach out to me over email, say like, "Wow, you're the only one showing off a new product. Everybody else is just a card vendor or like a toy vendor or something. Like, I'm specifically coming over to see your stuff. And it was one person. He didn't buy stuff, by the way. That was fun. But moving forward, the show goes off, and it's my first show. Like, what do you expect? I was happy to break even, to be honest with you, and my wife wasn't happy that I only broke even, but that's beside the point. She's very supportive and loves me, so we're gonna get all that out of the way. But at the end of the day, with everything said and done, I get told by David, who's one of the owners at the time, if you show up to any of our TCG cons, we got a spot for you. You just need to tell us, we'll get you a free spot forever. It doesn't matter wherever you want to go. We like your drive, we like your personality, we like your game. And in addition to that, he came over on Sunday and brought his camera guy, and they filmed me and did a full edited video for me for free. And I was like, wow, this is like the big time. I got discovered. These guys are going to take care of me. It's going to be awesome. And the next show was in Galveston, Texas. I've never been to Texas at this point. So it's road trip time. And I did a road trip with me and another person who ended up working for the show and two other people that were also vendors. And we road tripped all the way to Galveston, and we had ourselves a weekend. And it was okay. I actually did a little worse than I did in Tampa, but it was the thrill of it. It was the whole, I'm getting out there, I'm getting my name out there. If I can get my name out there, then people will start picking it up. And once people realize how cool my game is, it's going to be awesome, and we're going to move forward. It's only going to do better. And the next show is in Toledo, Ohio, which is a lot further north than Galveston is, west. And so, same road trip, same crew, same everything. We're all going to Toledo. And we drove to Toledo. And the next show that is on the docket after Toledo, um, the next show is in, I believe it was supposed to be in Seattle. And Toledo is a hit. Like, we did really well, or at least my game did. Now, Toledo is also where one of the first cracks about the show starts to surface, and I'm gonna say these in retrospect, so, because again, hindsight's 2020, and it's really, really easy to see things for what they were at the time. And it turned out that in Galveston, the management team, the two owners, had hired on somebody to run the tournaments, and that person was not a good person. I don't know all the details about it, but I know there was issues with pricing, there was issues with things, and it was at that point they kind of realized you can't advertise these big tournaments without proper payouts being there. If you're gonna do these big tournament advertisements, it needs to be paid out as advertised. You can't let the players bully you. You can't let the tournament organizers bully you. You have to keep a firm grasp. And I believe at that point, that's when Dustin, because I believe he was in charge of the tournaments at the time, or I'm not 100% sure. Dustin pretty much, I think he started to want to control the tournaments for the show. Because at that show in Toledo, I believe, no, it wasn't in Toledo, that was in Louisville, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The point is that we run Toledo, everything goes great. I've already booked my plane ticket because driving to Seattle and Tacoma, which was the next show, was not going to happen. I live in Florida, for the record, so driving all the way across the country is not a doable thing for me. So, and on top of that, for the first time, I'm wanting to bring my wife to go to Seattle because she's never been out of the state, never been on a plane, never any of that. So we're flying to Seattle. So I booked 2 plane tickets. I fly us out there, and I found out about 3 weeks before the show that it was canceled. Now I don't pay for a booth, so to me it's like, okay, I guess I have a weekend in Seattle. I already had my Airbnb. I already had a rental car set up. I already had all of it, so I just went to Seattle, had a good time. But again, I'm digressing. The point is that should have been when I noticed that there was problems, because I believe that the reason that the Tacoma show got canceled was because there was Emerald City Comic Con the same exact weekend, which was 30 minutes north, which I should have noticed at that point that the management wasn't paying attention to other con schedules And that became a factor later, but we're getting to that. So we go through everything. We have a show in Louisville. We have a show in Denver. We have a show, in Indianapolis. So like again, we're hitting all these cities and we're getting stuff out there. But it was when we did Louisville, Kentucky, and that was the last time that I drove. Because again, same song and dance, but prior to that, the other guy who ended up working for them said, I can't endure the drive anymore. I know road trips fun, but I can't do it. And I said, you know what? If that's the situation, ask them. Because you're working for them now. And if you're working for them, they should be able to fly you out there. And it worked. It was this, and again, it's more of that internal validation as a person that can possibly work with these people. Like, oh, they have the money to just buy you a plane ticket. That's cool. And this is before I understood like business write-offs and all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, he gets his ticket, and I'm like, okay. So in Louisville, I come up to them and I say, hey, can I get a ticket when you guys go to Denver? And they're like, well, if you want to do that, we'll talk later. And he calls me and we talk. And the way that Dustin explains this to me is he says, look, we need to seed information about Denver and we need to get vendors out in Denver. So if you want to contact people, then you are able to do that and we'll get you a ticket. You can have a free booth and we'll fly you out there. You can even stay with us at the Airbnb. Not a big deal. Or we'll even put you in a hotel. One or the other. I'm not sure yet. And I said, okay, that sounds easy. So what did I do? Because I'm a spreadsheeting crazy person, I pulled all the data that I possibly could about every single card shop within 50 miles of the venue, and every single hobby shop, and every single like I'm contacting all these people. Boom, 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 boom. Like just give me your information. Do you want to get a booth? 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 Are you willing to get 4 free wristbands to go to the show for the weekend? All you need to do is put these flyers in our thing and we'll send you out a care package. I need your information. I need your phone number. I need a point of contact. And I'm really good at that type of stuff. Um, so it worked. And I got my ticket to Denver and I was like, oh, sweet. All I have to do is get them information, possibly book vendors, get people invested in the show, get people advertising the show, and I can go to these shows and I can sell my cards and I can be an entrepreneur and I'm gonna do great. And it worked for Denver, and then it worked for New Jersey, and then it worked for Tampa. But I lived in Tampa, so some of that was out of it. But it worked whenever we were traveling, and so from then on, it was Indianapolis, Denver, and New Jersey, and I forget the rest of them. But the point is that we kind of had a good system going on, and what ends up happening is that we go to Denver. I think it's the second time, and because we had done, I don't know if it was Houston, might have been Houston, but the point is that we got into this rhythm where it. I kind of came to them and said, "Hey, just as a question, do you want to just hire me as a worker? Because at this point, I'm still an entrepreneur. I'm living off of my savings effectively, and I needed a steady paycheck, and it was something that I needed to do." And David at the time, very, very, very calmly explained, "We are not looking to hire people at this moment. The system that we have right now is working, but once we grow more, you'll be first on our list. You know that." And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And David was always kind of the, I guess for lack of a better term, voice of reason in the group. He was very, straightforward. He was very good at getting information across to people. And Dustin was kind of like the idea guy. He made sure that venues were secured. He had, like cities in mind. He had plans. He did all the web stuff. He did all that. And then we had Dez, who had also been introduced later on. And Dez was in charge of getting talent and getting voice actors and voice actresses and artists and stuff to come to the show. So again, we had this really kind of core team, but I was the one bringing in the vendors if they didn't have the vendors already signed up, because we had vendors that had started in Tampa that wanted to travel with the show and all that stuff. So, and we had some sponsorships with companies and stuff like that. So it was all really cool because these companies they want to sponsor shows because the shows get big. They get primo position, they get this and that. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff with all that. But it came to a point where I knew that I wasn't going to be employed by them, but I also knew that, they kind of needed me in terms of getting people's information in there. And I wasn't upset because, again, I'm getting my booth compensated. They basically gave me whatever I asked for if I showed up at the show, and they flew me there and they put me in a hotel or they put me in the Airbnb with them. And I made friends with the staff and I knew people and like I knew I knew who I was going to hang out with, and it was this really cool camaraderie between everybody involved. We had one person that we messed with all the time, kind of like a little brother, and then we had other people that were like the bully, but at the same time they would defend anybody that ever got attacked by anybody. And so it was this group of people that were, comrades, and we were all friends, and we did stuff, and we had this show and we were putting it on. It was really cool. But I didn't know any of the background stuff. And I don't think anybody did except for David. And David knew the background stuff, and David knew it was time to leave. But there became this rift in Denver, and it was this moment where David basically said, "I'm probably leaving. If I don't go, then Dustin's got to go. It's one of us. One of us has to go. We can't. I can't keep with this." And it just was. Everybody thought that David was going to be the one to stay, and Dustin was going to leave. Dustin stayed. David left. And this isn't a direct attack on Dustin or anything. It's just that I think that the situation kind of got out of hand. Because remember, back from before, David was the one that told me we're not looking to hire anybody. Immediately after David left, Dustin approached me with a proposal. The proposal was, we're going to do Tampa. I want you to get businesses. I'm going to pay you, and for interest of full transparency, I'm going to pay you 10% of the booth for every single business that you bring in. He also approached me with another con that he wanted to start running, which I'm not going to bring up here, and he offered me the same deal for that con. And I said, you know what, that's not a bad gig. I can get people in, and I'm gonna, or it wasn't 10%, it was 15%. My fault, 15% commission on every single booth that I sold, and he would pay me $200 a week to run the social media for the company. That included Facebook, Instagram, and effectively Meta. So anything Facebook or Instagram, that was me. Pretty much from the summer, fall of 2023 up through the end of Houston. So I believe, based on the chart that I'm looking at, started on August 7th of 2023. That was my first official week where I had access to the page, and I had access to the messages, and I could reply to people, I could talk to people, I could get people in touch with us, and I could answer questions. And so if you ever asked a question, about 90% of the time it was me replying. There was also another person that was replying, but that person was also one of our artists, and then there was one other person who could reply besides Dustin, and that was Dez. So there were about 4 of us that had access to the page, but primarily I was the one typing away and answering all the questions. So I was the one that everybody was yelling about certain individuals being posted up as, featured guests for the show, because it was a problem with their career choice. And I'm not going to get into details, but you guys can probably put together the picture. At the end of the day, that was the agreement. And it worked out. Tampa, fine. Tampa was fine. Everything for Tampa, I was paid in full. Not a single cent missed. I got a huge bump on my pay. I was able to provide for my family with a job, and it was paid timely, and I had no problem. So again, I'm very much invested in this company, because while the pay isn't amazing unless I start selling a bunch of booths, and unless I start doing the social media every single week for a foreseeable future, I'm kind of it's a way to make some money on the side. I had another thing that I was doing, another gig, but I was able to juggle both, because I could do the physical work on one side, and I could do the social media work on another, and I could make the cold calls, and I could talk to people, and I could re-sign up people, and there'd be people that would be, booking for multiple shows, because our big plan was to do a Tampa show in 2023, and then announce our big schedule, 2024. Houston, And then Los Angeles, we'll get back to that. And then Tampa again, because Tampa was going to be the biggest blowout show. We were booking the big venue. It was going to be great. And Tampa, 100% behind. Houston, I'm 100% behind. I told the owners the second that they mentioned Los Angeles that they were needed to not do it Los Angeles. I said it. And I'm not gonna. I won't even hold back. I said you go to the West Coast and you don't have tons of money in the coffers, and you don't have staff, and you don't have presence, and you don't have a decorating bill that's impressive, and you don't have the best list. Like I said, you're compromising every single vendor that's here on the East Coast because they're not going to want to travel. You're compromising so much. Why would you ever touch LA? And their excuse was that LA was where the money was. LA was where the people were, and LA was the best cost overall for getting the talent there because a lot of them live in LA. That was their explanation. And I said, you know what? You guys are the boss. That's on you. I don't, you know what? I will sell the booths. I'll start calling people as soon as we get done with Houston. Okay? I will actually maybe a couple weeks before because at this point, I was able to use some of my connections to get involved with companies that are, I guess the best way to put it is, oh man, I forget the term, industry. So I was trying to add validation to TCG Con by having industry standard con show people, like people that you'd see at big shows like, Anime Expo and big shows like New York Comic Con. Like I was trying to get those people to start doing TCG Con to solidify us as a big brand effectively. And it was kind of working, like there's a few that were in there and they didn't really complain because they had the best displays, they had the best stuff, and the market was small, but it was also, people showed up, and there was this really unique vibe with TCG Con where it was pre-Collecticon. Like, I need people to understand that TCG Con kind of set the model that Collecticon perfected. And I'm sorry, Des, if you're watching this, but Collecticon did perfect it. But at the end of the day, the advantage of TCG Con was that you had people that were there to play in tournaments. You had people that were there to get cards for their collection. There were people there to offload their collection. And the people that offloaded their collection had a whole bunch of cash. And all that cash meant that the vendors that weren't card sellers, or the vendors that were card sellers, had a whole bunch of people with a bunch of money burning in their wallet now. Because now they can afford to go buy that $70 figure. Now they can go and buy that cool acrylic board. Now they can go afford to buy those silly t-shirts that they couldn't afford to buy before they walked in and traded cardboard for cold hard cash. So there was a very, very good thing going on with TCG Con because it was effectively like people being able to come in and it was like a big bazaar. And I use bazaar in the term of like, Middle East, but you come in, I'm trade you this to get this, and it was this really cool feel and vibe, and I will always advocate that TCG Con had one of the best vibes of a show that you could go to. Like if you were playing in the tournament, you were there to play in tournament, but the people that you brought with you might come there to shop, and the people that you brought with you might go there to hang out or trade cards or try to get stuff for their collection or whatever. Or everybody in your local tournament group wants to go in and win this big prize because TCG Con would advertise cash prizing. And again, it worked. The system worked. It did, but then we tried to get too big. And we start running into more cracks. We start running into more problems with the show itself, which is you had a lack of accountability on cash, you had a lack of accountability on who had money and where that money was being allocated, and you had a lack of accountability on contracts and a lack of accountability on payouts. And so again, I ran the social media, so I'm the one sitting there hearing people complain that something that they were supposed to get was damaged, or something that they were supposed to get never arrived, or something that they were supposed to get. I saw the stuff. Like that's probably the biggest problem, is that one of the biggest gripes that people had about Houston, and again, I'm jumping ahead here, but one of the biggest gripes that people had about Houston was that, oh, I never got my playmat, my special playmat that was made custom for TCG Con Houston 2024. And I never understood why it didn't go out. And again, it wasn't my job. My job was to make sure the vendors were happy. And the vendors were happy for the most part. The only time that we ran into problems was when the schematics that I was given for how the tables would be laid out did not match the schematics of the room. So we would be off by 3 or 4 feet, and then those 3 or 4 feet would be a pillar in front of someone's booth. And I have to scramble to try to move that person and make them happy because I have to stay within fire code and I have to do this. And this is where we get back into a little bit more because I said that I started becoming the national sales manager for TCG Con back in 2023 in August. And my job effectively became get vendors into the building, get paid a commission, and run the social media, and we'll pay you. And everything works through Tampa, and then we move into Houston, and payments start happening. And I'm here to publicly announce that the last payment that I received in any capacity from Dustin, because Dustin was the one that paid me out, was on Christmas Day of 2023. And I started asking him when my car broke down, when other things happened, hey, can I get a little bit of the money that I'm owed? Hey, I know that we have the show coming up, but I need to get some money to be able to pay for this. And I got no response, or I got just wait until the show's over. Everybody will be made whole after the show. Everybody was not made whole after the show. Needless to say, after Houston, there was a whole big falling out with everybody internally. There's other videos online that you can search for if you want to find out all the nitty-gritty details of all the bad stuff in the background. But at the end of the day, between a sham of an after party that bankrupted us effectively in terms of money, because nobody for a 2-day show that is just trying to get their footprint in Houston is paying $20 to go listen to a band where literally the staff was 60% of the audience in attendance at this after party. We were charging $20, and I know just internally that the guarantees for the bands that they hired was way more money than what was brought in because all the staff got in for free. Keep that in mind. And again, that's as part of staff, that's expected. But there was about maybe 15 to 20 people there at $20 a ticket. The math ain't mathin', right? It's $400, and that's before anything. So $400 does not equal like maybe 5 to 6,000 minimum in guarantees for these bands to show up. So that's the first bit. That's a whole nother thing to unpack. But I was never paid for social media work from November 20th all the way up until I was told that in effectively like March. I was told in March to stop handling social media stuff. It took until about April for the former owner, David, to revoke my privileges on the Facebook page because I contacted him out of desperation because my anxiety was going crazy over all the missed messages that I was having because I was told do not reply to anything that people send you. And David, to my understanding, took me off the rolls because Dustin effectively disappeared. Dez handled his stuff, but there's just a whole lot of bad that happened. I know that for me, the money that was collected, I should have been paid my percentage. I should have been paid for the work that I put in. I should have been paid for the social media work that I put in. And I know that currently, when I was contacted by some of the internal people on the other end, like not Dustin, not Dez, because Dez was completely ignorant to how much I was owed, it was blatantly stated that I was not only owed the most, but I was owed almost 10 times as much money as anybody else that worked for the show. And I always tried to play peacekeeper. I always tried to say, let it be. The show's going to pop off. I was the one that suggested that we shift it from LA to Louisville because I haven't even gotten into why LA didn't happen. LA didn't happen because we didn't have any money. At least that's what I gathered. Because we didn't have enough draw. And there's a whole lot of reasons that everybody says, like, oh, well, this reason and this reason, this. No, at the end of the day, it's poor money management. At the end of the day, you got too big for your britches. That's what happened with TCG Con. And if it's Dustin directly, then it's Dustin directly. I don't blame Dez for anything in particular. Dez just did what he was told to do, which was get the talent, get the people in, and we're going to draw more people with all those people. And Dustin had a lot of aspirations, and I appreciate that he had aspirations, but I really hate that this entire circumstance resulted in people burning bridges, people not talking to each other anymore, and all that camaraderie disappearing. I haven't heard from Dustin aside from one conversation since the show, like since everything fell apart. Dustin has posted multiple times in that little group chat that we had. You know, he'll make sure to make everybody whole. It's been a year. It's been 1 year since I started working with TCG Con, and did a full show with them that I was never paid for. And it sucks because it's not just me. Like there's so many other people, and it's such a small thing. Like when you think about it, it's like just pay the people what they're owed. And I will say, if you are an aspiring person that is going out to make a con, and like you're going to have people feature as like, you know, talent, or have people feature like, again, cosplayers, pay the cosplayers, pay people what you owe them. If they agree to take time out of their time, don't just put your head in the sand and pretend that it's not real, because that's what it felt like. And that was the only thing that actually hurt. You know, like, I can understand, yeah, we'll bounce back, yeah, we'll bounce back, you know what, just pay me later. I believe in this company, I'm ready to work for you. Because I kept going for a month after the show. You know, I pitched Louisville, and then I get told, you know, 2 days later, after we set up Louisville's entire booth structure and we get everything prepared, oh, by the way, if you don't sell all the booths by tomorrow, then we can't do Louisville. And I'm like, what are you talking about? There's no way. You can't tell me I have a day to sell 35, 40 booths. It's just not going to happen. I'm good, but I'm not that good. So, needless to say, long story short, I wish I'd have gotten paid. And I know that I deserve to get paid. And everybody that worked for the show deserved to get paid. And I've kept my mouth shut for a year. And I just want to get it off my chest. It's been 1 year to the day. 365 normally, but 366 days due to a leap year since TCG Con Houston 2024. I know that not a single vendor, aside from about two or three that said it basically came down to them not bringing the right product, were upset with the situation. Every vendor seemed to be fine. I had nothing to do with the tournament frustrations, with the lack of payouts, with the lack of people, you know, getting what they're owed. I don't have anything to do with that. I just handled the vendors, and I thought the vendors had a great time. And as a vendor that works cons now, I think the TCG Con would have been a fine show to go to as long as you had your expectations tempered. Because it was a very different vibe from regular shows. The hustle and bustle of megacons and comic cons and all that, it's not really there at TCG Con. I'll tell you that, at least when we had it. But the people there had money, the people there had passion, and the people there wanted their stuff the right way. So I liked the attendees. The attendees were great. I liked the constructive criticism they gave me about my game. But effectively, because of the crash out with everything involving TCG Con, my game suffered because I don't have a place that's willing to put me in a hotel and travel me all over the country to show off the game anymore. For free, effectively, just for my work. I don't have, you know, the ability to just take time to go and try to sell product anymore. I don't have the money that would have been made from this to pay my artist. I don't have the money that would have been made. I have paid my artist, just for clarification. I don't have the money to pay him to do more work. I don't have the money to make new product or print it or produce it or go anywhere or sell stuff. Effectively, TCG Con went under and my company kind of went under, which is not fun. Um, so I will shout out a couple of the vendors that I know were fantastic at every single show that we had them at. I mean, Loot Goblins, 100%. You guys were great. I miss you guys. I haven't seen you at a show since, and it's still hurts a little bit because I know how much I enjoy your work. They made fantastic leather burned mats and leather burned keychains and leather burned whatever you wanted. But these play mats were gorgeous and they were fantastic. They went to every single show that we had on the East Coast. The other people that were like me, you know, the trendsetters trying to make their own game. Soul Masters, Epic Wars Confrontation, that was one of them that really, you know, had a lot of passion. We have Sin and Vengeance, and other ones like I think it's called Vanguard or shoot, uh, Voyagers. I forget the name of it. Started with a V. They're really cool space themed, like awesome equipment based game. I'm sorry, I'm trying to look right now in my spreadsheets to remember their name. But you know, like the relationships that I made and getting people to see me for what I was and knowing that all these vendors were happy with the results for the most part of all of their show, despite being in venues that don't advertise well enough. It's despite being incapable of getting information out there to people that needed to know where it was. The con staff, all the workers, all the people that busted their butt for this company and ended up not getting paid. The thing that hurt me the most in all this, and Dustin, I'll say it, is a lack of actual accountability on your side. Just, you disappeared, man. Like, there were people in this company that were willing to go to bat for you, and you just kind of put your head in the sand, it felt like. Didn't want to talk to anybody. Didn't want to, and I don't expect you to, given the circumstances, but I just wanted to get it off my chest. I've been holding it in for a year. I'm not going to turn this into like, oh, class action lawsuit or whatever. I'll just, you know, like, if people want to, I don't even know how this works, but like, I might put like my cash tag or something in the description. I don't care. I I just want to be able to make my game again. I want to be able to put it out there for people. I want to be able to have time and the availability to get it out there. But it's been a year, and I had one event last year. One. And it was worse than the previous one. So hopefully, um, I mean, if you guys see it, you see it. You know, if you guys want to get upset with me, I guess I was always kind of the USA, like the chill guy in the group that nobody really had beef with. But I might have made some people frustrated this time. I have nothing against anybody personally. Like, Des, I'm glad you're better, man. I'm sorry that you got sick. That's all I'll say. I'm glad you're better. Um, but David, you were the guy steering the ship. And Dustin, you always had good ideas, but you needed someone to rein you in, or you need someone to hold you accountable. And I I miss the camaraderie, guys. I really do. But things need to be made right. Whether that's me getting like, even if we could negotiate something, that'd be great. But if we can't, I'm not really one for conflict. So I hope you guys have a good night. And I will have an update about Arsenal relatively soon. Just kind of hoped, I don't know why I hoped for a year that maybe something would be said today. But I told myself last year that I would wait a year. If nothing was said, I'd answer any questions that people have to ask. So if you have questions, I will make a follow-up video. If you want to put the questions down in the comments, I'll see what I can do. All right? But you guys have a good night, and I'll talk to you later.